Okay. Okay. So, okay. So asthma, we are discussing today about asthma. Okay. The pharmacotherapy of asthma. So asthma, the pharmacotherapy of asthma employs drugs aimed at reducing the airway inflammation. What do you mean by airway inflammation? Inflammation of the bronchial tree. So mostly these are anti-inflammatory drugs. There is an inflammation has to be reduced, or there can be a spasm. There can be a spasm decreasing the bronchospasm. So generally bronchodilators will do that. Bronchodilation, various mechanisms of bronchodilation are there. So those bronchodilators can be used. So there are 6 classes of therapeutic agents recently used for this anti-asthmatic treatment. One is beta adrenergic receptor agonists. Number 2, glucocorticoids. Number 3, leukotriene inhibitors. Number 4, chromones. Number 5, methylxanthines. And then inhibitors of immunoglobulin E. Okay, so asthma as an asthma basically is we look at anti-inflammatories now, and what is the role of inflammation in asthma? We'll basically study now. So asthma is associated with inflammation of the airway cell. That means the airway gets inflamed. So increased number of various type of inflammatory cells, most notably eosinophils, but also basophils, mast cells, macrophages, and certain type of lymphocytes can be found in the airway wall biopsies, and these can and in the broncho-alveolar lavage fluid from the asthmatic patients. So which clearly says that there is an inflammation in the bronchioles. So inflammatory mediators and various cytokines are also increased in the airway of asthmatic patients compared with the healthy control subjects, which also clearly indicates that the patient has asthma. Now, bronchial inflammation contributes to the asthmatic conditions that and every asthmatic with normal baseline lung function and no recent exacerbations of asthma have increased numbers of inflammatory cells in the airways, and that clearly indicates that asthma and inflammation are connected. So many individuals with asthma are atopic and have clearly defined allergen exposure. So you see some of these allergy conditions, the some of these allergy conditions, they one moment, just be on the line. Allergy, some of these allergic conditions, the allergen exposure that are particularly or substantially responsible for asthmatic formation. So epidemiological studies shows the strong correlation between increasing Ig levels and prevalence of asthma regardless of the atopic status. So non-allergic individuals also can suffer from asthma. It is often seen subjects between whom the onset of disease in the later stage of life. So airway inflammation presumably is triggered by innate or adaptive immune response. Okay, innate is the inborn immune response. Adaptive means it is acquired immune response. So there are multiple triggers for inflammatory response. There is consensus that a lymphocyte directed eosinophilic bronchitis is a hallmark of the asthma. So lymphocytes that participate in asthma are T helper cell type 2 phenotypes, leading to increase in the production of leukotriene 4, IL-5, IL-3. IL-4 promotes the Ig synthesis in beta cells, while IL-5 supports eosinophil survival. So adapted or acquired immune response triggers the production of additional cytokines and chemokines, resulting in trafficking of blood-borne cells. That means all these eosinophils, basophils, neutrophils, lymphocytes in the airway tissues. And these cells further generate variety of autocoids and cytokines. So these are all the acquired immunological conditions that will increase the the asthmatic condition or inflammation. So inflammatory cascades also leads to activation of resident cells within the airways that in turn produce a quite large of cytokines, growth factors, chemokines, and autocoids. So the chronic inflammatory response leads to epithelial shedding. What do you mean by epithelial shedding? There may be a kind of a tissue rupture, epithelial shedding, and then reorganization, mucus hypersecretion. That means the fluid secretion. That's what you see during the cough, cold, you see secretions in your nose, and also during asthma, there is some kind of a flu smell, sound you keep getting. There is secretions in the bronchial tree and the airway wall remodeling. That means the pathophysiological changes that happens in the airway, it gets remodeled, and there will be subepithelial fibrosis and smooth muscle hyperplasia. Okay, all these things will be the changes that keep happening in the tissues. Now, asthmatic commonly exhibits bronchial hyperactivity. What is bronchial hyperactivity? There is a more of the response from the bronchial tissues. That's why you see a person in asthma, you will see the sound coming out. The chest sound, throat sound, the struggle to breathe, the activity will be hyper because there will be a constriction of the bronchiole and bronchioles happen. As a result, there is more of the hyperactivity is happening. And also the concentration of bronchial spasmogen. What is spasmogen? Spasmogen is a substance that constricts or causes spasm of that tissue. So methacholine or histamine, especially histamine, will be released, and needed 20% increase in airway resistance in asthmatic is often because of high concentrations of spasmogen. That means histamine release takes place. And bronchial hyperactivity is often a non-specific, such that the airway are also inordinately reactive to stimuli such as strong odor, cold air, pollutants. See, all these the reactants like cold air, pollutants, etc., will increase the concentration of bronchial spasmogens like histamine and will precipitate the asthma. That is why during the cold season, during the dust, one gets the asthmatic attack. Okay, so pharmacotherapy of asthma basically is centered on controlling these disease with drug that inhibit the airway inflammation. You have to curtail the airway inflammation. There are drugs that relax the bronchial smooth muscle. That means there is, because of airway inflammation, the bronchial muscle is contracted. That means there is a constrictions happen. So you need to relax it, and so that the breathing is much more smoother and faster. You see here, all these mechanisms are clearly explained over here. See, I put here allergens. When these allergens and come and sit on this epithelium here, and then these allergens, they will act on the mast cells here and the basophils and macrophages, dendritic cells, and release the cytokines and chemokines. Eosinophils, all these are released over here. Okay, so that's how inflammation is caused. And these inflammatory mediators that I've been seeing over here, these inflammatory mediators, they will cause bronchoconstriction. You see, bronchial hyperreactivity. This constricts, and also vasodilatation or vasoconstriction, angiogenesis. And also as a result of this, you see, I told you mucus generation, hypersecretion of the glandular hypersecretion. So mucus generation is happening. Then there's a plasma leakage. As a result, edema takes place. You know, during the cold, you see here, there's all on the neck, on the head, there is a swelling. Sometimes face swelling will be there. That is because of plasma leakage leading to edema. Then you will also see subepithelial fibrosis, epithelial shredding, and you will see sensory activation and plasticity. That's why there is a pain. Pain and the dull pain is because of the sensory activation. So all this happens as a result of allergic inflammation in the airway. Okay, it's a pretty simple mechanism, and we need to know what is the source. Number one source is allergens, manage the allergens, and then the inflammatory markers that are released inside, manage those things. The vasodilator constriction that happens, manage that. Mucus that has been released, manage that. Okay, there are different ways of managing all this kind of stuff. See, now when you have to have the allergens, you have to have anti-allergens, antihistaminics, and all the anti-allergens. Then you have to have the beta 2 agonists that will cause the bronchodilation, vasodilatation. Then you have that for mucus, you have what is that? The pseudoephedrine and ephedrine. What is that? They are the nasal decongestant. What is nasal decongestant? They will congest the blood vessel in the mucous membrane so that the fluid will not come out. They are the nasal decongestant. So various mechanism drug need to be used to make sure that the therapy is managed. Okay, so that is the pathophysiology and the possible approach to the treatment of asthma. Now let's go into the medications. So when you treat the asthma, most of these are the topical delivery of the drugs in the lungs. You see, the asthmatic, the pumps are there, the aerosols. So this approach should produce a high local concentration of lungs in the lungs with low systemic delivery, because the lung is very close, nose and then the lung. So you just pump that here, you pump it in the mouth, it will straight away go to the lung, it will cause degradation. So that is why it is preferred to use the aerosols. So these drugs used most commonly treat the beta 2 adrenergic receptor agonists. That means all this, the terbutaline and things like that. And then you have glucocorticoids. But glucocorticoids have potentially serious side effects when delivered systemically. So these things are, as far as possible, the pharmaceutical manipulations will happen in such a way that they are not going to systemic. Majority of them deposit in the locally in the lungs. But since the pathophysiology of asthma appears to involve the respiratory tract alone, the advantage of aerosol treatment with limited systemic effect is substantial. We don't want it to go anywhere else. We just want it to restrict itself to the lung. Then about 90% of the asthmatic patients are probably capable of manipulating inhaler device, and they are managed by aerosol treatment alone. Just take an asthmatic drug and manage this one. You don't need to give a systematic. When you give systematic, it will have so many other complications. So let's go to the first class of drug. First class of drug is a beta 2 adrenergic receptor agonist. Tell me, why beta 2 adrenergic receptor agonist? Why not beta 1? Why beta 2? Can anybody answer me? Why not beta 1? Why beta 2? 8, 7 of you are there. Why not beta 1? Why beta 2?
Beta 1 is a bronchoconstriction.
Beta 1 is a
Bronchoconstrictor.
Mayank. If I'd
Yes,
seen
sir.
you physically, I would have hit on your head. Why not beta 1? Why beta 2? Tell me. This is the foundation of pharmacology. Why not beta 1? Why beta 2? Where is beta 1 present? Archana, where is beta 1 present?
Smooth muscle.
Myocardial smooth muscle, sir.
Beta 1 is a myocardial receptor. Very good, Anup. Where is beta 2?
In the lungs, sir.
Beta 2 is in the lung. Beta 2 is, that means beta 2 activation. What will it do to the lungs? What will beta 2 activation do to the lungs? Quickly. What will beta 2?
It affects on smooth muscles and cause the dilation of
Very good.
bronchial.
Tell it causes bronchodilation. Beta 1 activation, what will it do to heart? Who will answer me? Quick. Beta 1 activation, what will it do to the heart? Myocardium. Beta 1. Who told me beta 1? Anup. Tell me what will beta 1 do? Beta 1 activation. Anup.
Increases heart rate.
Yes. Who said that? Archana, is it?
Yes, sir.
See, beta 1, be confident, I say. So, beta 2 adrenergic receptor agonist available for the treatment of asthma are selective beta 2 receptor type. Why selective? Tell me that also. Why selective beta 2? Okay, I don't want to go too much of discussion. So they are delivered directly to the airways and they are short acting or long acting. Short acting are generally used for symptomatic relief of asthma, whereas long actings are used both prophylactically and therapeutically for the disease. Okay, so mechanism of anti-asthmatic action of beta adrenergic receptor is very clear. It causes direct relaxation of the airway smooth muscles and consequent bronchodilation. Okay, so stimulation of beta 2 receptors, the adenyl cyclase cyclic AMP pathway, the stimulation of beta 2 receptor activates the adenyl cyclase cyclic AMP pathway with the consequent reduction in the smooth muscle tone. Okay, so beta 2 adrenergic receptors agonists also increase the conductance of calcium sensitive potassium channels in airway smooth muscles, leading to membrane hyperpolarization and relaxation. There are beta 2 adrenergic receptors on the cell types in the airways other than bronchial smooth muscles. So, stimulation of beta 2 adrenergic receptors inhibit the functions of numerous inflammatory cells, including the mast cells, basophils, eosinophils, neutrophils, and lymphocytes. See, when the mast cell inflammatory function is inhibited, that means mast cell will not release histamine. Mast cell is released from histamine. So, in general, stimulation of beta 2 adrenergic receptors in these cell types increase the intracellular cyclic AMP, ultimately inhibits the release of inflammatory mediators and the cytokine. So it's a dual action. It will not only cause the dilation, but also it will decrease the release of the inflammatory markers. As a result, it are very effective anti-inflammatory drugs or anti-asthmatic drugs. So short-acting beta 2 adrenergic receptor agonists are drugs like metoprolol, metoprolol, terbutaline, albuterol. Okay, these are the drugs that are used for acute inhalation of treatment of bronchospasm, whereas the terbutaline, albuterol, metoprolol are also available in the oral dosage forms, whereas others are basically only in the aerosol forms. So each of the inhaled drugs has the onset of action within 1 to 5 minutes, and the bronchodilation lasts for about 2 to 6 hours. It's an amazing good time. About 6 hours, if it is keeping the lung dilated, you can take about 3 times a day, you are comfortably okay. Although there's a slight difference in the relative beta 1, beta 2 potencies of all this, but that does not really affect us when there's a difference in potency. Okay, now long-term acting beta adrenergic beta 2 receptor agonist, this salmeterol, zinafolate, and formoterol. These are the long lasting adrenergic agonists with high selectivity and for the beta 2 receptor subtypes. So bronchodilation for these drugs lasts for about 12 hours, and mechanism, bronchodilation lasts for 12 hours. Mechanism underlying the extended duration of action of salmeterol appears related to high lipophilicity. That means it will retain there in the lipid characteristics for a long period of time, and it will show its activity. So after binding to the receptor, the less lipophilic, short-acting agonists are removed rapidly from the receptor environment by diffusion in the aqueous space, whereas this the long-acting like salmeterol persists in the membrane and slowly dissociate from the environment of the receptor. Because they remain there for a long period of time, they call as a long-acting the beta adrenergic receptor agonist. Okay, let's look at the adverse reactions. The adverse reactions, this beta 2 selectivity, topical delivery, owing to the beta 2 selective, beta 2 receptor selectivity and topical delivery, inhaled beta adrenergic receptor agonists at recommended dose have relatively few adrenergic receptors because you are not sending the drug in the body. You're restricting that in the lung itself. But when the dose increases, then they may get into heart because it's a beta 2. Beta 2, it dilates the large blood vessels, and so it causes the hypotensive effect. So it has a cardiac arrhythmia, central nervous system excuse me, effect on the associated with the central nervous system with beta adrenergic activation. Now let's come to glucocorticoids. I'm sure you have studied enough about the steroids. One of the most powerful, very effective, but very dangerous drugs. Okay, this is one class of drugs among the whole pharmacology that it is life-saving, at the same time killer drug. Okay, and so systemic glucocorticoids have long been used to treat the severe chronic asthma or severe acute asthma. So these aerosol formulations are there which are used for glucocorticoid treatment, and asthmatic patients who require beta 2 adrenergic agonists 4 times weekly are generally given the glucocorticoids because it is more powerful than the beta 2 agonist. Now, mechanism action in asthma, you're familiar with that. Glucocorticoids do not directly relax the smooth muscle, thus have little effect on the bronchoconstriction, but they are one of the most powerful anti-inflammatory drugs. So their anti-inflammatory effect in the asthma includes modulation of the cytokines, chemokine production, inhibition of the eosinophil synthesis, marked inhibition of the accumulation of basophils, eosinophils, leukocytes in the lung tissues, and decreased vascular permeability. That is what its golden action to have anti-inflammatory effect. Because of the profound and generalized anti-inflammatory actions, glucocorticoids are most effective drugs used in the treatment of asthma. Okay, so let's look at some of the formulations. Inhaled glucocorticoids. So these formulations greatly enhance inhaled glucocorticoids, greatly enhance the therapeutic index of the drugs and substantially diminishing the number and degree of side effects without sacrificing the clinical utility. There are 5 glucocorticoids available in the therapy. This is beclomethasone, then triamcinolone, flunisolide, budesonide, fluticasone. These are all effective in controlling asthma at appropriate dose. Inhaled glucocorticoids are used prophylactically to control asthma rather than acutely to reverse the asthmatic symptoms. So if you have acute, then use beta 2. If you have a chronic, then use glucocorticoids. So newer drugs are highly potent and they can be effective within as little as 1 to 2 puff administered twice or even once daily sufficient. Many patients prefer this more convenient dosage regime, providing improved compliance and better asthmatic control. So maximal improvement in lung function may require several weeks of treatment, but see, glucocorticoids are worst toxic drugs. Inhaled glucocorticoids have extremely low bioavailability owing to extensive first-class metabolism by the liver and reaches circulation almost exclusively from the absorption. The adverse reaction, see hypothalamic, pituitary, adrenal gland axis. I have 10 more minutes, okay? Okay. So then bone marrow resorption. As a result, the bone becomes fragile. Then carbohydrate and lipid metabolism. It affects the carbohydrate and lipid metabolism. And so this may be generally about 100 or 1 mg per day causes, beclomethasone causes this. It precipitates cataracts. It precipitates skin thinning. As a result, it will cause the skin infection, purpura. That means again a skin problem. Then cardiasis, which means again making infections. Then growth retardation. This is one of the worst thing that can ever happen with this supposed to be amazing drug. Okay, so having seen this, let's now go to next class of drug, that is leukotriene receptor antagonists and leukotriene synthesis inhibitors. So the name of the drug generally used in this are gefirlocast and montelukast are the leukotriene receptor antagonist. This Gelitron is an inhibitor of 5-lipoxygenase, which catalyzes the formation of leukotrienes from arachidonic acid. Okay, the mechanism action of asthma. So this leukotriene receptor antagonist, the cysteine leukotrienes include leukotriene 4, leukotriene D5, leukotriene E4. All the cis-LTs are that means cysteine leukotrienes are potent constrictors of bronchial smooth muscle. Okay, potent constrictors of bronchial smooth muscle on molar basis and are more potent than histamine as a bronchoconstrictor. And that is why this constriction has to be inhibited, which will lead to dilatation. So the receptors are responsible for bronchoconstrictor effect of the leukotriene, and because of its effect on the cis-LT1 receptor. And each of the cis-LT1s is an agonist in the cis-LT1 receptor, and cis-LTE4 is less potent than LT4 or LTD4. Okay, now zircoflast and montelukast are selective, high affinity competitive antagonist at this cis-LT1 receptor, which means they selectively block the receptor and causes the dilatation. Okay, next we'll go to leukotriene synthesis inhibitor. So the formation of leukotrienes depends upon the lipooxygenase of arachidonic acid arachidonic acid by 5-lipoxygenase. I'm sure you studied this earlier, so I don't need to go more details into this. Then Gelutons is a potent and selective inhibitor of 5-lipoxygenase activity, and it blocks the formation of 5-lipoxygenase products. Thus, in addition to inhibiting the formation of cis-LTs, Geluton also inhibits the formation of leukotriene B4, a potent chemotactic autocoid, and other eicosanoids that depend upon the leukotriene 4 synthesis. Now, logically, the therapeutic effect of 5-lipoxygenase inhibitor would include all those observed in cis-LT1 receptor antagonists, as well as other effects that may result from inhibiting the formation of LTB4 and other lipoxygenase products. Now, toxicities of this. There are few adverse reactions, adverse effects basically associated with the leukotriene synthesis or its function, and may not be very predominant, and that should be okay. Now, whereas use in asthma, the modest but significant improvement in the pulmonary function and decreases the symptoms and asthmatic exacerbations. And for those who respond to anti-leukotriene therapy, the National Heart, Lung, Blood Institute recognizes these drugs as an alternative to low-dose inhaled steroids for control of the mild chronic asthma. See, this is any day much better than steroids, because even if you give steroids in a low dose, it will cause a lot of other damages. But whereas these leukotriene antagonists are much safer and better alternatives to that of the steroids. So this class of drug is not indicated for rapid bronchodilator therapy. That means it cannot be used as an acute therapy. Acute therapy, better going for beta-2 agonists. Now, hepatic transaminase should be monitored in patients beginning this treatment, because there is a potential of causing liver toxicity. Okay, let's get to the next drug. Next drug is anti-IgE therapy, that is omalizumab. This is a omalizumab. This is the first biological agent approved for the treatment of asthma. So this omalizumab is a recombinant humanized monoclonal antibody of Ig1K subclass. This is basically targeted against IgE, and IgE bound to omalizumab cannot bind to IgE receptor on the mast cells and basophils. Thereby, it prevents the allergic reactions at a very early step in the process. So, as I said, stitching time saves 9. This will be much useful. So, generally, omalizumab delivered as a single cutaneous injection early 2 to 4 weeks is much safer. Toxicity, the most frequent adverse effect of this is the site of injection causes reddening, bruising, induration, etc. There are cases of malignancy, 20 out of 4,000 patients taking omalizumab. So, but still, it cannot be called as a malignant, but this is a significant number. Okay, so in asthma, this is used to treat adults and adolescents above 12 years of age with allergies and moderate to severe persistent asthma. So this is used to reduce the inhaled and oral corticosteroids and decreasing the frequency of asthma. So based on its mechanism action, omalizumab has been used in the treatment of allergic disorders such as nasal allergy and food allergy. Okay. Now we'll go to the next drug. Next drug is cromolyn sodium and nedocromyl sodium. So this cromolyn and nedocromyl inhibits the mediators released from the bronchial mast cells. Okay, as a result, the histamine release is stopped and all the other release. See, I'll be closing in the next few seconds. Okay, and the screen may go off. Okay, so the adverse reactions are very infrequent and minor, and the main therapeutic use is to prevent the asthmatic attacks in individuals with mild to moderate bronchial asthma. Okay, now I'm sure you have studied enough about theophylline. Theophylline is an old drug, and I want you to study theophylline, know this, and theophylline used in asthma, its adverse reactions, and anticholinergic drugs also you have studied. I want you to know those things. With that, I complete the chapter on the asthma. Okay, so I want you to read those things. Theophylline and anticholinergic are definitely not used these days, but whereas the other drugs are very frequently used. Okay, so thank you, and you send me the attendance. Archana, send me the attendance with these things. Is that okay?
Yes,
Hello.
sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Attendance, study this, and I'll come back to you next on Thursday with my next class. Okay. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Well.